Hey, today is day 3 of reading the Bible and being more intentional with my prayer life. I pray throughout the day, I promise. But sometimes I feel like I'm not as focused on one thing and my mind drifts sometimes. So I want to be more intentional in my prayer life. So today I ask for God to help me stay focused in throughout the day and what I'm prayerful about. Anyway, so the first 2 days I read Genesis 1 through 3 and then 4 through 7, I believe. Today I'm reading Genesis 8 through 11. And since it's January 3rd, in my little devotional that my hubby gave me, it says, faith like a child, I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love to them. I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed him, and that's in Hosea 11:4. So it's late in the evening, but today I really had to think about my place in my marriage because my hubby wants to make a purchase that I don't agree with. And it's hard sometimes to just sit and listen and go along with something even though you don't agree with it. So anyway, I'm praying on that. But I have to remember that today and every day I'm going to continue to have faith. And I pray to God that He continues to build my faith in Him. And remember that these are not big problems. It's just a small problem that I want to immediately think, what's the worst case scenario of what could happen to him, when he's out riding his motorcycle or something. And so I have to remember, I have faith. Father God will keep him safe. He will get back home to me every day. And, sometimes we feel sorrow. Sometimes we feel disappointment. Sometimes things don't go our way. But I can say this: God gives me all that I need. And I just want to continue to lean on Him and not my own understanding, and have Him lead me and trust that He'll take me where I need to go. So I'm praying to have faith like a child today. And I'm just going to continue that prayer. And then also in this little recap for kids that I got, it says for Genesis 8 through 11, it zooms in on one portion, which is, remember, Noah's in the ark with his family and the animals. That's what we left off with yesterday. And it says that God says to Noah, yes, this rainbow is a sign of the covenant I'm confirming with all the creatures on earth. Genesis 9:17. I was thinking today, because I was listening to Genesis while I was cleaning the kitchen earlier this evening, and I had to stop it for a second and really think about that rainbow. Like, of all things for God to show us, because you don't see them every day, is a special rainbow. But then I started thinking about people who live in the world. We've all done it, and some more than others, but there's a certain group of people that have a rainbow as their symbol. And I just think to myself, I have never looked up, like, what do they feel the rainbow signifies for them. But I was just thinking, because my mind always wants to go to the negative, that did they use it because, God has had the rain stop, and then he provided this rainbow as a sign of his covenant. And then I just start thinking, did they want to belittle the Bible by using such a significant symbol of the rainbow to be used for their symbol as well? I don't know. I've never looked into it, but that thought came to me earlier when I was listening. In here it says, when the rain stops, Noah and his family have a lot to get used to. They live in a new place. The land is muddy and soggy. Everyone else on earth has died, and they know they'll live shorter lives than people before them ever did. And everything seems to be changed for Noah and his family, and the change can feel scary sometimes. But God, he is never changing. He makes them a promise that he'll never again destroy the earth with a flood. And he tells Noah that his promise is a covenant between him and Noah and all the people who will ever live on the earth. He's basically said that he would not destroy people again. So they're at their will. So this is the first covenant in the Bible, and it's conditional. It's unconditional. God knows that people will continue to sin, and he makes the promise anyway. So he gives them a rainbow as a sign of his covenant, and he invites them to join him in the covenant relationship by filling the earth with people again. So they're to go out and multiply. So his family gets part of the invitation right, and many more people are born, but they miss the second part. They don't fill the earth. They stay put in one place, ignoring God's instructions. So God spreads them out by changing their languages and dividing them in groups. That goes on into Babel. So, so I guess the God shot for today is that God has a covenant still to this day with all the people of earth. Even though that we sin, he will stand on not destroying the earth again with a flood. He sent Noah and his family as a sign of the promise. He sent them that rainbow. And I know, when I was a kid, my parents, if they saw a rainbow, look guys, a rainbow, look at it. And we'd be all in awe of the beauty of a rainbow. And I know I did that with my children too. And even my students at school, if we happen to see a rainbow when we're at recess or something, it's not that often, but it's just a sign, and it brings joy, doesn't it? So I think that's nice. So let me get into reading Genesis 8 through 11 today. So, again, as a recap, Noah and his family and the animals are in the ark. So, and then the rain's is stopping. So here we go. Genesis 8, the flood recedes. But God remembered Noah and all of the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the floodwaters began to recede. The underground waters stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the floodwaters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. 2.5 months later, as the water continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. So we're about to get into where Noah will send out a bird a few times to check. So after another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat, and this is Genesis 8:7, and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the floodwaters on earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and if it could find dry ground. But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat. And Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the floodwaters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time it did not come back. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last earth was dry. Then God told Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Release all of the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." So Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all of the large and small animals and birds came out of the boat, pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night." Genesis 9, repopulating the earth. God confirms his covenant. 9:1. Then God blessed Noah and his sons and told them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. All of the animals of the earth, all of the birds of the sky, all of the small animals that scurry along the ground, and all of the fish in the sea will look on you with fear and terror. I have placed them in your power. I have given them to you for food, just as I have given you grain and vegetables. But you must never eat any meat that still has the lifeblood in it. And I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. If a wild animal kills a person, it must die, and anyone who murders a fellow human must die. If anyone takes a human life, that person's life will also be taken by human hands. For God made human beings in his own image. Now be fruitful and multiply and repopulate the earth." Then God told Noah and his sons, "I hereby confirm my covenant with you and your descendants, and with all of the animals that were on the boat with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, every living creature on earth. Yes, I am confirming my covenant with you. Never again will flood waters kill all living creatures. Never again will a flood destroy the earth." Then God said, "I am giving you a sign of my covenant with you and with all of the living creatures for all generations to come. I have placed my rainbow in the clouds. It is a sign of my covenant with you and with all of earth. When I send clouds over the earth, the rainbow will appear in the clouds, and I will remember my covenant with you and with all living creatures. Never again will the flood waters destroy all life. When I see the rainbow in the clouds, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth." Then God said to Noah, "Yes, this rainbow is a sign of the covenant I am confirming with all the creatures of earth." 9:18. Noah's sons. The sons of Noah who came out of the boat with their father were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. From these 3 sons of Noah came all of the people who now now populate the earth. After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground, and he planted a vineyard. One day he drank some wine he had made, and he became drunk and lay naked inside of the tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked and went outside and told his brothers. Then Shem and Japheth took a robe, held it over their shoulders, and backed into the tent to cover their father. As they did this, they looked the other way so they would not see him naked. When Noah woke up from his stupor, he learned what Ham, his youngest son, had done. Then he cursed Canaan, the son of Ham. May Canaan be cursed. May he be the lowest servant of his relatives. Then Noah said, May the Lord, the God of Shem, be blessed, and may Canaan be a servant. May God expand the territory of Japheth. So may Japheth share the prosperity of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. Noah lived another 350 years after the great flood. He lived 950 years, and then he died. Genesis 10. This is the account of the families of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the three sons of Noah. Many children were born to them after the great flood. Descendants of Japheth. The descendants of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The descendants of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rapha, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodnim. Their descendants became the seafaring peoples that spread out to various lands, each identified by their own language, clan, and national identity. Descendants of Ham. The descendants of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Sabteka. The descendants of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. Cush was also the ancestor of Nimrod, who was the first heroic warrior on earth. Since he was the greatest hunter in the world, his name became proverbial. People would say, this man is like Nimrod, the greatest hunter in the world. He built the kingdom to the land of Babylonia, with the cities of Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh. From there, he expanded his territory to Assyria, building the cities of Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Calah, and Rezin, the great city between Nineveh and Calah. Mizraim was the ancestor of the Ludites, Ammonites, Lahabites, and the Naphtuhites, Pashurites, Casluhites, and the Kephtorites, from where the Philistines came. Canaan's oldest son was Sidon, the ancestor of Sidonians. Canaan was also the ancestor of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. The Canaan clan eventually spread out, and the territory of Canaan extended from Sidon in the north to Jerah and Gaza in the south, and east as far as Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim near Lasha. I'm not great at pronouncing these things, I know. Okay. This is 10:20. These were the descendants of Ham, identified by clan, language, territory, and national identity. Descendants of Shem. Sons were also born to Shem, the older brother of Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the descendants of Eber. The descendants of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. Eber had two sons. The first were named Peleg, which means division, for during his lifetime the people of the world were divided into different language groups. His brother's name was Joktan. Joktan was the ancestor of Almadad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Ibmael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All of these were the descendants of Joktan. The territory they occupied extended from Mesha all the way to Shafar in the eastern mountains. These were the descendants of Shem, identified by clan, language, territory, national identity. The conclusion. These are the clans that descended from Noah's sons, arranged by nation according to their lines of descent. All of the nations of earth descended from these clans after the great flood. And then this is Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel. At one time, all of the people of the world spoke the same language and used the same words. As the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. They began saying to each other, "Let's make bricks and harden them with fire." In this region, bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reached into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world." But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. "Look," he said, "the people are united and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other." In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world and they stopped building the city. That is why the city was called Babel, because it was there that the Lord confused the people of different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. From Shem to Abram. This is the account of Shem's family. 2 years after the great flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. After the birth of Arphaxad, Shem lived another 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. After the birth of Shelah, Arphaxad lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. After the birth of Eber, Shelah lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. After birth of Peleg, Eber lived another 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. After the birth of Reu, Peleg lived another 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. After the birth of Serug, Reu lived another 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. After the birth of Nahor, Serug lived another 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. After the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years and had other sons and daughters. After Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran, the family of Terah. This is the account of Terah. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran was the father of Lot. But Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth, where his father Terah was still living. Meanwhile, Abraham and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. Milcah and her sister Iscah were daughters of Nahor's brother Haran, but Sarai was unable to become pregnant and had no children. One day Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's son, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years and died while still in Haran. The story of Abraham will actually be part D that goes from 12:1 to 25:18. So, despite God's swift judgment of sin, most people ignored him and continued to sin, but a handful of people really try to follow him. One of these was Abraham, and God appeared to Abraham one day and promised his descendants into the great nation. Abraham's part of this agreement was to obey God through sharp testing. So that will be something that will come later. Let's see if there's any more. Oh no, that's it. And then it says, through sharp testing and as an incident that almost destroyed his family, Abraham remained faithful to God. Throughout this section, we discover how to live a life of faith. So, I was very confused when I very first became a Christian and started reading the Bible, because some of the names are repeated and then sometimes their names are changed. So I know that Abram will be Abraham, and Sarai will be Sarah, I believe. So that is Genesis all the way through 11. Very interesting. There is the story of Noah's life here. Let me see, what else do they have? Oh, the Bible nations descended from Noah's sons. They talk about Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Shem's were the Hebrews, the Chaldeans, Assyrians, Persians, Arameans, or the Syrians. And then for Ham, it was the Canaanites, Egyptians, Philistines, Hittites, and Amorites. And for Japheth, it's the Greeks, the Thracians, and the Scythians. And it says that Shem's descendants were called Semites. Abraham, David, and Jesus descended from Shem. Ham's descendants settled in Canaan, Egypt, and the rest of Africa. Japheth's descendants settled for the most part in Europe and Asia Minor. So it talks about where Noah's sons go. That's pretty cool. I'll probably go back and look more at that and read more of the notes. That's usually what I do when I'm done reading it. Oh, and then there's also a couple of maps. One is the Tower of Babel. The plain between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers offered a perfect location for the city and tower that reached into the sky. That was in Genesis 11:4. The people's pride led them to sin. As punishment, God scattered the people by giving them different languages. And so it has a place on the map where that little plain was, where the Tower of Babel was most likely. And then it gives them a description of a ziggurat, what it looked like, kind of like a pyramid, and it had ramps and things. And so that's in here. I'll probably read more on that. And then there's also another map that says Abram's journey to Canaan. So Abram, Sarai, and Lot traveled from Ur of the Chaldeans to Canaan by way of Haran. Though indirect, this route followed the rivers rather than attempting to cross the vast desert. Oh. So they went way up out of the way through the river, and then they went and connected with close to the Mediterranean where Canaan is. And it shows where Shechem, Bethel, and Jerusalem are, and Haran, Ur of the Chaldeans. That's interesting. So There are maps of that, and I know that when I first started reading these, there weren't maps in the Bible that I looked at or read. And so I remember thinking, I wonder where all these are, and looking it up, and then trying to look some of it up. But technology nowadays is able to provide more, and the books have evolved to show us more as far as more detail. So I'm going to end here and do a little reflection in my little journal, and probably head to bed. Tomorrow's Sunday in church, and it's already really late. I did a lot today. So I just want to end with a quick prayer. Father God, I just want to continue to focus on you and your word. I pray that I will continue to grow in my prayer life, in my marriage, and in the things that are important. Please lead me on the path that you want me on, and allow me to continue to be focused on you and your word. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.